Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and thanks for joining the SG Child Show today. This is going to be a really great conversation. We've already spent time chatting away, and so I know we're going to have to come back to some of the great things we already have discussed. It's so great to have you here today, Gina. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
This is going to be a unique conversation. Covering some of the topics I love. Like I had told you before, I love babies and things like that. I love attorneys. So we're
not sure about that one. I love babies.
But it's all in the right basket here. No, just kidding. But it's going to be just a really informative conversation that I think is a topic that isn't covered enough, and probably, I mean, I don't know, maybe you go on a lot of podcasts and cover it. So this will be my first time really being able to talk about it and discuss things that are so important for families, especially new parents coming into this phase of their life that really don't know what to expect, and how wonderful that we can show up and give them a little bit of guidance, a little bit of tangible experience to draw from, to say, oh my gosh, somebody has gone through this. I don't have to feel like I'm alone, or I'm doing this, out of nowhere, and really be able to understand kind of the steps to take. So with that, tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and what kind of brought you here today.
Sure. So I'm a mother. That's probably my most important job, the most important thing I do. I have two daughters. One's 19 and one's 15. And that becomes relevant a little bit later on. And then I also have a 9-year-old son who's in 4th grade. You know what? He's also relevant later on too. I shouldn't exclude him. I am an attorney, and I specialize in childbirth. So for those of you who don't know, during the birth of a child, if something goes wrong, whether it's a mistake, it's a complication, and baby is not born healthy, and unfortunately, in some of these childbirth cases I deal with, the babies, they don't make it. And then in some really sad cases, I have moms that do not make it through childbirth. But what will happen is, when that happens, the family then, if it's due to a mistake or a complication, or they believe it is, will seek an attorney, and that attorney will bring a lawsuit against the hospital. I'm an attorney in that case, but I'm the attorney for the hospital. I'm the attorney for the doctors, the nurses, the midwives, basically the delivery team that was responsible for delivering the baby. So I have done this for over 20 years. And that basically is 20 years of analyzing all of these mistakes, complications, what should have been done so a baby could have been born alive. Just all these questions that, as the attorney on the case, I'm responsible for answering. And in answering these questions, it's taken me across the country in almost every state, in every single hospital system in the United States. So my last job, my most recent one that I created based upon that experience I just explained, was author. So I am now an author, and I authored a book called A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth. The goal of my book is to prevent these mistakes and prevent these complications from happening. Because if we can prevent these, guess what? We have more healthy babies. So basically, instead of getting involved after a difficult delivery, I'm trying to get involved before childbirth in order to help parents have a healthy baby. And again, it all starts with the book. And then you had just said, hey, I'm not really familiar with this area or whatnot, because this book was just published this summer at the end of June. Prior to that, I mean, there's this being published, there's nothing else like this. There is no other childbirth attorney that has gone out, published a book to parents to say, hey, this is what you need to know that will help you have a healthy baby. There's nothing out there like this. This is not a conventional pregnancy book, and definitely not a conventional book on childbirth.
Yeah, absolutely. And such a different take on how to bring on a child into this world. I think it's something that people don't consider, that, like I said, such an important thing to get into their minds and to get into the ideas of people, especially maybe some of the listeners might be older listeners that can then give this information to their younger teen or, younger adult and older teens to really understand that there's more than just having the baby that happens. There are complications. There are circumstances that can occur, and you are never, ever, you think you're prepared or you have a plan, but it's not really true. You can't prepare for some things that you don't understand that even exist or could go wrong. So I love that you're bringing some of those things to parents and really just pre-parents' brains so that they can be prepared for and know what to do in the case that it does occur and how to move forward. So important, because we really base a lot of our decisions, if we do research and we're smart about making our decisions that way, in such a way that we gather information from others. It's not our own experience, and we have to lean on the experiences of others. So how many cases would you say you have worked on overall, estimated?
Oh, geez. Unfortunately, many, probably way too many to count. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. Oh, geez, I met so many families and whatnot. Oh, it's just, and then you have to remember, I specialize in childbirth too. So that's really all I do. Like today, I'm still an attorney. I still have cases, and I only do baby cases. That's it. So, I mean, I don't even know how to The problem is we're now, technically on the record. So, one podcast, I'm like, I did this many, and then I kind of.
That is so true. That is so true. Well, thank you for helping all of those families. Is really what I was getting to, is the number of the people that, and the doctors and the staff that really need that support as well. And I think that a lot of times, just us as humans, we go out into the world and we just kind of think that one person is responsible for one thing or whatever, or one person is responsible for everything for us or whatever. And I think it's so important that, especially as a parent, we have this understanding that service providers provide services based on the information, number one, that we give them. We have to be that responsible, accountable party to bring the right information, but also that there's usually a team like you are representing and helping, is these teams of people that are making decisions together, which also must be quite difficult in trying to help navigate those situations. What do you think, especially like when you were writing your book, what was your main goal in helping families in this preventative way? What's like one tangible step they take? Okay.
So let me just tell you how I ended up. So this book, by the way, is thousands of hours. I spent an incredible amount of time analyzing everything and thinking, how can I prevent these mistakes? How can I save babies? Every single day was, how can I do this? And I mentioned my kids earlier. It's because I wrote the book to them. It was like they were sitting in front of me and I'm like, this is what you need to know. But not only is it what you need to know, but how to prevent. So what I did in the book is chapter 1. Chapter 1 is all of the lessons, and actually I shouldn't say all, there's 13 lessons that I put into chapter 1. And then each lesson, it's like the summary of the lesson, why it's important. Each lesson is then a subsequent chapter. So then you go to that chapter, you learn a little bit more about what's important, and then you learn on, okay, how to make sure this does not happen during, my labor and delivery. So, and some of it kind of all like kind of meshes together. For instance, one of the most important chapters in my book is chapter 11. It is the most common facts in a legal baby case, and it's the reoccurring facts. And that's because, unfortunately, since early in my career, I noticed that a lot of these cases have the same facts. So, for instance, one of the biggest things that they need to know is that the most common fact in a baby case, meaning almost all of the cases I work on, involve a Pitocin induction. So listen, if you're getting a Pitocin induction, it's time to do some research. You cannot just say yes to Pitocin induction and roll up to the hospital, because guess what? That's how each one of my cases started. So it's not that those days are all gone. And if you do that, you're just going to risk, getting into trouble, complications. So what I did then is chapter 14. Chapter 14 is my chapter on Pitocin. And basically, since my first case in February 2003, a Pitocin induction, I have seen the Pitocin inductions gone wrong for 20 something years. So I laid it all out. This is what you need to know. And then at the end, you have your 14 tips on how to have a safe Pitocin induction. And listen, it's not complicated stuff. Yeah. So it's literally, these are the problems. And actually, let me back up on that. Listen, my book is not scary. I feel like the subject that we're talking about, they're probably like, what?
And I want to say, let's explain what Pitocin does so that people that don't know what it is, they kind of have an idea. And then, we can definitely.
Sarah, you're awesome. I talk a lot of times like people know what I'm talking about. So just start raising your hand.
Yeah, and I know Pitocin.
Okay. So Pitocin is used to induce labor. That means it is given to mom, it's given in an IV, and it drips, and it makes the uterus contract. And that's really, the uterus contracts. If you've had a baby or you've been in a room with childbirth, usually you see the graph in the baby's heart rate. Underneath are the contractions. That's the uterus. That's the pressure from the uterus contracting. So that's what Pitocin does. It makes mom contract. And then the ripple effect makes the body then get ready to have baby. But it's definitely, baby doesn't want to come out and they're doing the pit. You got to just be careful. So that's Pitocin. And then about 2020, it became, just 3 years ago, it became even more acceptable to use Pitocin. So they have now approved Pitocin. You can have an elective induction at 39 weeks for Pitocin. So the last few years, Pitocin's it's doing this. So if you know anybody that's going to get a Pitocin induction, very, very important that they go through chapter 14 and go through the 14 tips, because Pitocin is a high alert medication. There's 12 high alert medications listed. That's it. There's 12 of them, and Pitocin's one of them. So, and it's a high alert medication because when it's administered wrong, or mom, baby, they have a bad reaction to it, it causes severe problems. It doesn't, so Pitocin, let me tell you, Pitocin as a baby lawyer scares me.
Yeah.
Doctors, they're fine. I talk to them all the time. I'm like, you really okay with Pitocin? And they're like, Pitocin's fine. I'm like, okay, because I see it in almost all the baby cases. And they're like, Gina, it's fine. So, I'm in this constant debate. So doctors think it's completely fine. So if you're telling them like, oh, it's a high alert medication, they may brush you off like they brush me off. But here, bottom line, I see it and I deal with it in my profession, which is the aftermath of a bad birth. On a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And, my listeners know that I'm going to share my own personal story about this, but what happened to me so that, and they can know and understand like the real effects. And I was 42 weeks pregnant because I had a water birth, midwife, all of the things with my first biological child. And I was taking all of the natural steps and all of these things. I had no hospital plan. Never. I hadn't even accepted that I could even end up or go to a hospital in any way. So yeah, didn't work out that way. 42 weeks, the midwife said, well, I'm going to have to send you up to to the hospital to, have your water checked and everything, have the fluids checked. So I went up. They said, well, we're going to keep you. And it was a Friday morning that I was there. Friday morning, I think it was maybe, Friday afternoon or evening that they decided they were going to start Pitocin as well. I got the IV started, and then about maybe 5 or 6 hours into it, I started having really, really bad pains, and I just wasn't sure what to do or how to cope with it. And then I felt my back was completely wet, and I realized the drip had come out. Or the epidural had come out, and I was on the Pitocin with no epidural, and I was straight just on I was just straight in contractions completely with nothing else. And so they took that out. Well, 65 hours was my labor on that with that baby. For 3 days, I was in labor with him, and I finally had a C-section on that third day. But yeah, that was my interesting story that I would have been still just laying there probably had I had not had the Pitocin and then the epidural failure. It was intense. It was definitely intense. I can say that when I was pregnant with my second and the doctor said, well, you're almost at 40 weeks. We can take her 2 days early so she doesn't be born on, I think it was New Year's Eve or something, And I said, yeah, that'd be great. I'll be there at 2:00. We'll take her at this time. Okay, great. It wasn't this oh my gosh, who knows what's going to happen. So I can definitely say that one was much easier on everyone kind of thing, because to show up at the hospital Friday morning and then all my friends don't hear from me till Monday, they were just like, what happened? Geez. Yeah. Crazy.
Oh, all right. Well, good. Makes me happy. You land. Oh, that's scary stuff.
Yeah. And he's, healthy physically. He's autistic. I don't think that had any play in the birthing process, but it's interesting that we can, like you said, if I would have done a little bit more research on even going to the hospital, for example, and knowing what the steps that were going to be taken were going to be, that would have been so much better for me to be informed. And I certainly wasn't at that time.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. So, right. And, I don't know what, anything with your son, I don't know anything about him, but I did include in my book. So when I was doing all my research that what should I actually include in my book? I did include some information about Pitocin and autism.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I haven't dissected those studies enough to have an opinion either way, but I looked at them close enough that I thought it was important to put in the book.
Yeah.
So and again, this
So
book too,
interesting.
it's
Yeah.
about giving parents information. So I'm like, listen, and they're just short. It's a short paragraph. That actually, it's this chapter and the epidural chapter, but both of those, there are studies that link those two with autism. The part that I included that I wasn't happy about was so the doctors have an association that they belong to.
Yeah.
It's actually called a college, but I call it association for easy words. And that association told all the doctors that, hey, listen, if you have a patient that's undergoing a Pitocin induction, there's no reason to tell them that Pitocin has been linked to autism. So they're literally instructing the doctors, the colleges are like, you don't have to tell the patients this. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So
That's
I find
shady.
that, and I'm like, really? Well, I'll tell them.
Yeah. Right.
So, and I don't know
Thank you.
much,
Yeah.
but it is,
Mm.
they're the studies. So I think I quoted one of the studies. But anyway, it is in the book that there is a
So,
link, but at least that way,
yeah.
again, it's just so parents, it's also, I want to make it a good resource that if you do PIT, there are studies that say this. If you do epidural, there are studies, that say this.
Yeah. And best have the information and be able to share it with the people that it's going to affect the most rather than hide it and not share the information. That's shady. Some shady stuff there. I mean, and doctors should be, you'd think that ethics code would kind of cover that a little and not that would be a yeah, that's so
So
interesting.
if you want to know how you know if you have a good doctor,
Tell
well,
me.
hold on. That's a pretty loaded question. Well, let's say one of the ways you know you have a good doctor. So a good doctor, so in medicine, there's typically two schools of thought. It's almost like why I have a job too. Like there's always different opinions going, and I'll retain two different doctors. They'll look at the same care of a mom, and one doctor will say, hey, everything was done fine. And then another doctor will say everything was done wrong. I mean, these are the same doctors practicing the same profession, giving me the exact opposite opinions. Not only that, sometimes these doctors work in the same hospital. So these
Mm,
are, I mean, just the difference of opinions are in the medical world, especially when it comes to childbirth, huge.
yeah.
So my point is that a good doctor will always say to you, if you ask a question, hey, can Pitocin cause autism? Well, this is what your doctor should say if you have a good doctor. There's two schools of thought on this issue. There are studies that have come out linking autism and Pitocin. There are studies that have come out that said there's no link. So there are two different schools of thought.
Yeah.
And if they've done their research and they know the studies, both studies, not just one side of the study, not just one side, but both, they could then, possibly give you their professional opinion saying, I have researched this extensively. I know the ins and outs, because you can have a study all day long that says something, but listen, you got to look and see, okay, was it on 4 patients?
Yeah.
You have to look
You
at
are
and that's what
so
I do.
right.
Because if a doctor cites a study, I'm going to be like, oh, the one with 4 patients. That's a great study.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of the population. Great job.
Yeah.
So the doctor, if they've studied it, then can then give you their professional opinion. If they have not, kind of like what I did, then I haven't studied these. I can give you some resources or whatnot, but just so you know, there are two schools of thought
Yeah.
versus just following the association or the college that
Yeah.
says, there's no link. Like
Exactly.
that's scary.
And it's so hard to, as you well know, and I'm sure the doctors that you talk to, show up as an expert even and give like meaningful information that somebody still isn't going to disagree with along the line, even though you might be an expert at that information. There's still cultural differences. There's still all sorts of individualized circumstances that come into play, especially with families of different diversities, I'm sure, and underserved communities and all the sorts of levels of complexity that add to what happen in that process, I'm sure, of, how the, like you said, how these doctors are showing up and saying, no, everything was fine. No, everything wasn't. So that's a hard thing to be able to bring to the table and say, well, you make your choice now. You're the parent. Like you have to make your choice, right?
Well, you got to remember, so in childbirth and any other part of pregnancy, listen, mom is the decision maker. Okay. Doctors and nurses and the delivery team are medical advisors, literally. They cannot start an IV. They can't start PIT. They can't do a vacuum if there's a problem. They can't just do a C-section. It doesn't work like that. Mom actually has to give consent. And if there's two, and then sometimes mom may come, now this is in the book too, mom may come to the hospital and they may be like, maybe even in your case, I don't know when you presented or, exactly what was going on, but, there might have been something where the doctor is like, well, you're not really close to being in labor. You have the option of a C-section, and then you have the option of, going and trying to have a vaginal birth on Pitocin induction or C-section. Which one do you want to do? That is actually a very common question. I shouldn't say too. It's more common probably in my cases. But those, and now mom has to decide. Now, again, doctor, nurse, resident, whoever's there on the delivery team may say, based upon my professional experience, my knowledge, education and so forth, I would recommend this. But again, you're the decision maker.
Yeah.
So having an understanding of the basics of labor and delivery and childbirth and whatnot is huge. Because I can tell you, and I think I just said this, but the families that are in these childbirth cases, they roll up to the hospital and they don't know anything. Actually, that is the number one lesson. So chapter 1 are the 13 lessons. The number one lesson is from the families. And it's, and I think it's the mentality, only bad things happen to other people and they don't get ready. And when you're not ready, you can't make decisions, you are in a vulnerable state, which I would not recommend on one of the most important days of your life.
Yeah.
So, so what I did on that lesson, for instance, chapter 2 is the basics of labor and delivery, basics of childbirth that you need to know. But my basics, as you can imagine, are a little bit different than anyone else's basics. So these are my basics that I use when I'm analyzing a case, analyzing what went wrong, what should have been done. This is my knowledge base that I have built, that I have just accumulated over, 20 years. But it's an important knowledge base, because if parents know what I know and the facts that I rely on, it's going to help them make those better decisions. So that is chapter 2. It's mine. And, let's say I'm talking to an expecting mom. Again, this is my knowledge base that I rely on. So, but yeah, I don't know exactly where that answer was going, but that is that's chapter 2.
I think it's good that you did that too, because moms want answers. They're looking, what mom in pregnancy isn't out there looking for the pregnancy book, isn't out there learning what comes next. What do I do? Like, if you have not gone through it, and it's not even to say if you haven't gone through it once, it's not going to be completely different the second time around, because look, no two kids are the same. So why would your pregnancies be? Right. But again, they go in not knowing, not being informed, not even knowing that they should be informed. So really valuable things to be able to work on, and to help families really gain that understanding of how important it is to have a childbirth plan, and not to just, wing it at the midwife's office and decide that, when you're at the hospital that you've never plan for that, because really nature is its own force of everything. So you don't have control over that. And the best we can do is be preventative. So yeah, I think that that's fantastic. Tell us about some more chapters and some more ideas of how we can better inform the people in our lives to find this book and have it be a part of their plan.
Right. Which I'm really impressed with the whole plan thing, because I believe that is chapter 6 is have a plan. So see,
Yeah.
you're already even helping with the lessons and
I love
everything.
it.
But it actually, one of the other really important lessons, and this is huge. Okay. You got to remember, I represent the delivery team. Okay. So parents, you have to have an understanding of how your delivery team works before you go to the hospital. And then not only that, you got to realize, and I don't think most people do until they get there, you don't know the people on your delivery team.
Yeah.
Those are the people who are scheduled to work that day. Not only that, your doctor heads the delivery team. Is your doctor going to be at the hospital? Where's your doctor? Who is somebody from his practice going to be on call? There's a lot you got to know about your delivery team, because they're responsible for bringing your baby safely into this world. So my book goes over, the roles of the people on the delivery team. And you know what? What if you don't like someone on your delivery team, or you're not comfortable with them? You want the dream team.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you got to remember, your doctor is captain of the ship. He's running the show, but he's not at the hospital. He's doing it from somewhere else. So you have the nurse, the resident, maybe a midwife, whoever, they're the ones at your bedside. They're the ones assessing you. And then they have to communicate whatever they assessed, or whatever you told them. Now they got to communicate that to the doctor and say, what's the plan? Okay. And the doctor, based upon what they said, is like, okay, this is the plan. So you got to make sure you got a dream team. Because if you have the team with a bad apple, that's not good, because that's how some of these kids, they start playing out. Someone on the team is not good. So again,
What do we do? How do we get rid of those people? Do we request that they aren't in the room?
So what you do is you have a team with a bad apple, assuming it's not your own doctor. So listen, here's the deal. Keep this in mind. Your doctor, whoever's going to come in to deliver your baby, has positioned themselves to drop everything to come to the hospital. So if you have somebody that you're not comfortable with, I would make a call to the doctor. And if they can't figure it out over the phone, again, remember, you're in labor. You're physically and mentally just trying, okay, what do I got to do to get the baby out? No, doctor can deal with it. So have the doctor figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
And if doctor doesn't see you figuring it out or whatever, and let's say it's the nurse. Okay. It's the nurse. You're not a fan of the nurse. And you might like the nurse, but you're like, this nurse is really new and I am in a Pitocin induction and I'm just not comfortable. You go to the charge nurse. Say, hi, can I talk to the charge nurse? Every hospital has a charge nurse. They have to have a charge nurse. Charge nurse is they oversee all the nurses. They typically know what's going on in the hospital. And remember, the charge nurses, they don't hire the nurses. Typically, I should say not all the time.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but these aren't the charge nurses' employees. How about that? Right. So sometimes if you pull a charge nurse in and you're like, yeah, I'm not really a fan of my nurse, the charge nurse might be like, you're like, yeah, I know. They may already know that this is not a great nurse. But again, the hospital is employing the nurse, the hospital's keeping the nurse, the charge nurse is just in charge. But once you get that charge nurse, she can do what she does best and she can help you. And there's a story in the book about that basically there was two nurses. So the mom in the case walks into the hospital and there's two nurses and one has 20 years experience and she's literally born to be a labor and delivery nurse. She's amazing. She loves her job. She's the dream team. Okay. Then you have the brand new nurse who has decided that she hates her job. She doesn't even want to be a labor and delivery nurse. She actually ended up leaving labor and delivery nursing like soon after she started, right? because it was just like too much for her. So that night, the patients that walked through that door, it was luck of the draw. Did they get born to be labor and delivery nurse, 20 years experience, or did they get the other one? So listen, if that patient who got the other nurse that, you know, with no experience and hated her job, she would have said something. The born to be nurse or even the chart, they know, like they know she's a new nurse. They know she doesn't know what she's doing. So, you know, if you say something, then they'll fix it, but you have to say something. That experienced nurse cannot stick their head in that patient's room and say, hey, your nurse sucks. Let me know if you want a new one. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
If you say something, you can get that ball rolling, and they probably already know. Let me just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not only that, another chapter is having a baby advocate. Listen, you're a mom. You're mentally, physically trying to focus, get baby out.
Yeah.
Either you're in a bunch of pain, which is the only time it's okay to be in pain, by the way. And if you're not on pain, you're medicated.
Yeah.
So having a baby advocate to kind of do all of that stuff for you is huge. And I made that chapter 7 of the book is just designating, it could be anybody. Grandma's make the best baby advocates, by the way. It could be hubby, if he can, you know, if you got one that'll talk, or it could be your best friend, cousin, aunt, you know. So give them that job. There is, at the end of that chapter, it's how do you prepare your baby advocate? But you know, that would be something that they would do. They'd be like, okay, you want a new nurse? All right, I'll do that. And then they go from there.
I love that. These are really great steps to take too, because you said it right off the bat, you know, having a dream team it comes down to so many things in our lives, and especially when you're giving birth, your like biggest day of your life, you're bringing life into the world. You know, and my personal experience in this is that I have what does my husband call it? I have I have good patient syndrome. That's what he calls it. My mom was a nurse.
That says it all.
I show up. Exactly. I show up and I won't complain about anything. And I just push through everything. I just am a good patient. Yeah. Don't do that. No. Please don't show up like that. Like, really advocate for yourself and realize that when you're not advocating for yourself and putting yourself first in this exact situation, you're also not really showing up for that baby. This is hindsight. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. But you're really not. Like, anything could have gone wrong, and I might have just like gone with the flow, right? Or something. Luckily that didn't happen. Like, everything is great. But the same breath, like, I still have to, even now, remember if I go to the doctor that, like, if I'm at a level of pain, like, I've got to be able to say something, not just pretend like nothing is wrong, because I'm there because something's wrong. And it's a battle. That's a mental health in a whole nother episode. But no, I think it's the way you show up as a patient really is important. So telling women, like, don't show up as the perfect patient. Show up and, you know, make sure you're advocating for yourself and your child and your family. But really, where you're also coming from in when these doctors and these other teams of people are showing up, then they want to be at their best too. And they want to have their best interests be in these babies being born. And I'm sure they wouldn't go into this area of work and career field if they didn't already have that desire. And maybe some people fall into it and accidentally end up, or like you said, find out they hate it and quickly get out of it. But it's so important that you are also helping these teams of people understand that they have support as well, because I can't imagine for them that it's easy knowing something went wrong also, and the guilt or anything they must feel as individuals being on that end of a team where a case went wrong with a baby, and then how to fix that? Do they normally end up like, how many people do you see leaving the field after something goes wrong?
Yeah, there's been a few for
Yeah.
sure. And it's the bad ones that
That's
are
good.
just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because once a case is filed, I got a call, where are you? And then I got to meet with them. Why'd you leave? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, it's hard. And I'll tell you, and when it comes to something going wrong, I think the nurses have the hardest time. They show more human emotion than anyone on the delivery team by far. They're the ones that will, typically, they'll be the ones crying or whatever. It is hard on them, but, you'd be surprised. I don't know if it's something that I can hopefully help fix one day, but there's not a lot for the actual delivery team, the nurses and whatnot. So, I mean, one was leaving for vacation and that was it. Like it was an awful delivery and she went on vacation. She did not have fun. She just and then that's it. And then, they go back, they talk about it maybe a little bit. There's no therapy for her or anything. And then with these days, you can't really just reach out to mom. I mean, so they really just bottle it up and then they meet me, their attorney.
Yeah.
And it's they just start talking and it's just like, oh. And then, I go from attorney to therapist and, try to get them through and whatnot. So, but no, it's hard. I'll tell you, it's hard on me.
I can imagine.
Mom. I'm a wife. I'm a human. And I have to sit, and when I sit with the families and they have to tell me about the day their baby was born, it's rough. Those are rough and emotional days. And I think emotionally, I suppressed a lot of that stuff. And one of the best things for me personally that's come out of this book was that for the first 3 months of going back and, trying to relive some of these cases and these families and trying to, what can I learn from them, but having to go back through everything, the first 3 months I cried. I cried every single morning for 3 months, sometimes uncontrollably, and it eventually would stop. But, it would get better. But just,
you were getting closure.
It was, it was. And it gave me clarity, but then, what it did is it really then fueled my desire to make sure that this book is something that won't scare parents, but will prevent anything like this from happening. Actually, if you go to the end of my book and you look in the acknowledgements, I tell the families, especially if they've met me and they see me or something, I don't know, but in the last one, I tell them, basically those mornings I cried and that it fueled me and it made this book what it is today. So yeah, let me tell you, it's hard on every single person there. And then, the families, they're just, it's just like this combination of they should have their baby and the guilt. It's not just losing a child, but they ended up feeling guilty. I mean, it's something that I don't wish on any parent. I mean, you have moms that carry, she carries her baby with her in the ashes. It's awful. And it's like they can't move on. And then when there's siblings, sometimes the siblings have a really difficult time, and because it's the first time that I think that they really experience like death like that of a sibling, they don't want to leave their parents. They're scared. So it's just, it's the ripple effect of something going wrong. That's why, again, it's part of my desire to get involved before childbirth. So because when this happens, it's awful for every grandparents, friends, these lives, these families' lives, professionally, they're just changed forever. So yeah.
Now, are you making this into a college presentation and high school presentation?
I should.
Yes, I was just thinking who's our best audience? And that's it. Who's our best audience? I think that would be the best audience is that, excuse me, I mean, people that listen to podcasts might be older, or I don't know what the younger generation. I'm not in that generation, so I'm not sure what they're doing. They're doing lots of TikTok videos. Maybe make those.
That's what they tell me. That's what they tell me.
Right? You gotta play on the
up.
kids' playground if you want to play with the kids these days, right? You gotta play on their playground. But no, I think that it's important that you get the information to the right listeners, to the right audiences. And yeah, that might be kind of something to think about, sending it to some colleges or introducing it to their libraries or something so that they can better inform their students. Because who doesn't want better education for such a serious topic? And I'm sure if they knew that it existed, and that's where we come in, is to help promote and share and support to get the people the right information they need to get. So I love that I can do this on this level of sharing with people. Yay. What we kind of got through to the end. Tell us about the last few chapters in the book, because I think we're on like 6 or 7 that we talked about last. Yeah. And so tell us how that kind of
how did you get to 6 or 7? I'm on 4.
Okay. I think you moved forward a little.
I love chapter 4, because chapter 4, it doesn't matter if you're pregnant or not. Chapter 4 should be read. And this is where people who read my book are like, Gina, you're going to have to write a book on chapter 4. So chapter 4 is how to pick the good doctor.
Oh,
so you have to remember, I have had, because remember, doctors had these deliveries. Doctors had these deliveries. There are many, many different kind of doctors. And what I have had to do as part of my job is analyze these doctors, every aspect of these doctors. And then I have to go back and I'm writing everything down. Like I write a written analysis on every single doctor I meet. I have the analysis on the opinions. Are they likable? Is a jury going to like them? How do they communicate? Yeah. Are they articulate? I mean, whatever. So I took on all of that knowledge that I've kind of gained over the last 20 years and put all of my doctor expertise into chapter 4. So chapter 4 is definitely a good chapter. It has some silly titles. I shouldn't say silly titles, but like one, for instance, one of the titles is the Yoda imposter. So I have a witness who had left a hospital system. But before she left, she worked with this doctor, and the doctor's name came up, and I knew all about the doctor, which was not good. And but she said I said the doctor's name, and then she was like, Yoda. And I'm like, are you calling the doctor Yoda because he looks like Yoda? And she's like, no, he does these great things for his patients, but he's a wise old man. We don't really see him too much, but he is the best of the best. And I'm like, okay, you are going to have to Google Yoda's name and see what comes up. And I can tell you it's true. Like, Yoda is a very bad doctor. Okay. But Yoda had this great reputation. So not only, because that's important in the medical field, right? Because if you have a good reputation, you're going to get more patients, you're going to get more referrals. Well, he has such a great reputation. They called him Yoda. So obviously he was exposed after some time, but just there's been a lot of things filed against that doctor. He is not Yoda. He's a very bad doctor. So the point is, a good reputation does not equate to good care. There's more to a doctor analysis than their reputation. Yeah. So I go through, the 2 things what I always fall back on, instincts are huge, communication. But then, there's just a lot of good information that people need to know about doctors, just in general in that one. And then the next one was hospital, how to pick a good hospital for your baby.
Oh, good.
You got to remember, and this comes up, there's different levels of hospitals. So if you're just at this small community hospital that doesn't really have after-birth care and something goes wrong, your baby's not going to get the care that they need. So accidents do happen, complications do happen. And this is just in general. This isn't even if something's done wrong, like a mistake or something.
Yeah.
This is just in general. Things do go wrong, even when there's not a mistake. It's nature. So if that happens and you're at a small community hospital, your baby's just not going to get that care. You might want to be, and especially if you have a higher risk delivery, like, your second baby was a C-section, right?
Yes, both of
So
them.
if you would have chosen to try a vaginal birth after a C-section, that's called a VBAC. Those are more high risk to mom.
I don't think they even gave me the option.
No, read about VBACs, chapter 7. And actually, I put the whole VBAC thing in there with a story. So it's very, very powerful. But yes, you'd want a higher level hospital. And then chapter 7 is that's your baby advocate.
Yeah. I love that. What a smart idea. I mean, I'm always advocating for advocates for autism and children and schools and things, but a baby advocate, of course.
No, literally, you are busy. Get your baby advocate. And I'll tell you another reason that baby advocates are important. Because listen, baby advocate is chapter 7. Okay, so baby advocate is chapter 7, chapter 8 and 9. This is why having a baby advocate is important. I'm going to back up and then I'll come full circle. So your baby is inside you. Okay. This is what makes childbirth really hard to manage and why things can go wrong. They can't physically assess baby. So they can look at mom and say, oh, mom does not feel good. Mom's in pain. Mom can't breathe very well. They can physically look at you and assess you. They cannot do that for baby. Okay. And not only that, baby's lifeline is the umbilical cord and the placenta. And even those, who knows the condition of those? Again, because everything's inside mom. So the best way to determine if your baby is okay during labor, especially like if a Pitocin induction, if you want to know if your baby's okay, you look next to your bed and its heart rate, your baby's heart rate should be graphing. Let me tell you, I can look at a baby's heart rate and tell you immediately if baby is a rock star or if baby is struggling. Okay. Because there are certain things that when a baby's a rock star, the heart rate looks a certain way. When baby's not doing well or can't handle the stress of contractions, then it does this. It does something else.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about contractions earlier. So contractions, like your pressure in your uterus comes down and it squeezes the baby. Most parents and people don't realize when that happens, all the oxygen or most of the oxygen to baby is being cut off. Baby's not getting any oxygen during a contraction. Think about it. One doctor explained it to me early on in my career. Imagine during a contraction, you go underwater and you come up when the contraction's done. That's what baby's going through. So you can look at your baby's heart rate. So you would easily, this is the medical world. It seems like they want to keep this to the medical professionals, but it's like so simple. And it's such good stuff for parents or baby advocates to know. But listen, you want to know if your baby's not doing well. So you look at a contraction, you're going to see it go up and down. And then you look at your baby's heart rate. And if the contraction's going up and your baby's heart rate's going down because it can't handle that lack of oxygen. And let me tell you, babies are meant to handle contractions. They are made for contractions. This is don't be alarmed over baby stops getting oxygen when the contractions happen. They're made to handle it. However, on something maybe like a Pitocin induction where they're being stimulated, that's a different story. Yeah. So anyway, more importantly, it doesn't matter if you're on PIT or not. If you want to know if your baby's okay, you look at their heart rate. So you're a mom in labor and, you're just trying to focus, get baby out, whether you're in pain, you're not, whatever. you're not going to stare at your baby's heart rate and try to give birth. Like it just doesn't, it's not going to work. So that's one of the most important reasons why you want a baby advocate.
Yeah.
So I was sitting next to you, if you decide to have another one, I can stare at that graph and I can be like, baby's good. Baby doesn't like that. And then when baby doesn't like that, then there's certain interventions, there's tests. It's a process. When baby is not liking the contractions, then that starts like a whole nother course of action. So you have your baby advocate sitting there, or like we talked about before, you don't like your nurse? Okay. That's a complete headache, by the way. Send the baby advocate to go do it. Listen, baby advocate is huge if this ever happened. One of the most common facts in a case, a very busy labor and delivery unit. The staff is running hard and they're thin. They can't sit and give you the attention you need. You have that baby advocate who knows what to do. Again, chapter 7, you have to know this. They know that. They can sit and keep you and baby safe while everyone else is running around, doing emergency C-sections, doing whatever they got to do while you're just chilling, in labor in your room. So having a baby advocate is beyond important.
Yeah.
That is your second set of eyes on baby. And then once you designate them, hey, listen, everyone if you have grandma there, it's like grandma's a baby advocate. Just give her a fancy title and it's like a new job.
Yeah.
So you don't roll up to a new job with no training and expect to be good. Give her chapter 7, just photocopy it. You know what I should do? I just put it on my website.
There you go.
Download. Here's for the baby advocate. Just download it. Well, I did that for chapter 1 because that's the lessons. I'm like, don't care.
Yes.
You at least need to know these lessons. If you don't want to buy my book, then download this and be safe.
I love it.
Same thing. I should do something with it. So I'm glad we talked about that.
Right.
But yeah, the baby advocate is huge because they're your second set of eyes when your delivery team can't be by your side.
And that's again comes back to us as humans realizing that, especially in these times where we have where we're at a hospital where they're being staffed by whoever is working at that time of day, like you said, it is so true. We can't come prepared with everybody set up who we know and have 5 years experience with or whatever. That's unless you've already worked in the delivery team and right, you can set them up. No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. But that's so fascinating.
Yeah, so just real quick, with that said, that you're perfect. It's who's working that day, but you got to remember, this is not a surgery center where everybody is scheduled at 7, 7:30, 8. No. These are pregnant people. Baby's ready, time to come. Woo! This is why units get flooded. There's a huge possibility. And then in Michigan, this is fun. In Michigan, there are actually months where the labor and delivery unit is more busy. The labor and delivery is more busy in May, June, and July. And they say the beginning summer months. So whatever 9 months before that is.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Christmas, exactly.
They're all
Everybody's
getting busy.
inside during the winter. I see where this is going.
Yeah. So you have that combination of who's working that day and babies are going to come when babies want to come. So the possibility of you rolling up to a busy labor and delivery unit, they're pretty good. You don't know until you get there.
Exactly. And better to be prepared with any kind of preparation. And especially, like, I would even go as far as saying advanced knowledge as you're providing people to take with them to have a better experience and to create a healthy, safer environment. For sure. I love
Thank
that.
You. Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
well, keep going. Tell us, keep on going.
Well, there was 8 and 9 are the fetal monitors and reading the baby's heart rate. Actually, there's 3 types of fetal monitors. You need to know which fetal monitor. You need to know the pros and cons of each fetal monitor because, unfortunately, if the wrong fetal monitor is used, it's actually, unfortunately, one of the most common mistakes in a childbirth case. The wrong fetal monitor is being used, and when that happens, most of the time the babies pass away when there's the wrong fetal
Oh.
monitor. So I go through all of that in my book. Again, parents, this is stuff you need to know. And they don't mind using the wrong fetal monitor. And I'm like, can you at least not use the wrong fetal monitor during an induction? You know, can you use the most accurate fetal monitor during an induction, please? They're like, no, they don't listen to me. So you're going to have to, and then
Advocate for that baby.
Yeah. So advocate for baby. And then 10, I think is my interventions. This is where I should know. So 11 is most common. Yep. So 10. Okay. So you look at the monitor, baby's not doing well. Okay. Baby's not doing well. C-section. It doesn't work like that. It's baby's not doing well. Let's run the tests and what we do to see what's going on with baby inside the best we can. Remember, they can't really assess baby. So they start all of these tests and they start these interventions. You need to know that if they start these tests and interventions and then they'll tell you the results, you need to know what they are before you walk in. Because guess what? If they're telling you about these test interventions and baby may not be doing well, you may have some important decisions to make. So it's important that you know about these before you go to the hospital. So, and then there's a couple lessons from the tests and interventions that, I gathered from the cases that I put in there. Chapter 11, learning from the legal baby cases. I'm sorry, the 11 is the most common facts and the reoccurring issues in baby cases. Again, busy labor and delivery units, Pitocin. Those are the two. Another one that is very interesting, that most people, I've said this quite a few times, they're like, really? Water breaking. So a mistake or a complication, something tends to go wrong after mom's water breaks. So baby is nice and comfortable, floating in amniotic fluid, everything's hunky-dory. It's the same environment that baby's been in for 9 months. Great. So they, either they break the water, it breaks on its own, and that whole intrauterine environment changes. Okay. And that can make baby vulnerable to, not doing well or something going wrong. So if a doctor, so this is the whole point. If a doctor is like, hi, I'd like to break your water. It's not okay. It's why? Do you want to break my water? Because there's a medical reason, because now you know that once your water's broke, the baby's at risk. Or I've heard of some doctors, and this is in the book, do you ask your doctor, do you want to break it for medical reason or do you want to be home for dinner? Which one?
Ooh.
So I've heard, but I know that one in the book. I'm like, but some doctors do it. I can't leave that out. And I think some doctors know other doctors do it. So, I know I was walking a fine line here. So then are epidurals safe in labor? I haven't talked about this one yet, but it's in the book in chapter 1. And the reason I included the epidural, I've never talked about it. I don't know if I can talk about it. It's literally in the book. Maybe I should just read it to you. But what happened is I got a case in, mom had passed away. But nobody knew it was from the epidural. No one. So it was really hard to look at the family, and they just wanted answers, and I couldn't give it to them.
Yeah.
So I wrote that chapter just to make sure that never happens again. I literally wrote that in there. So I don't think I said anything else that I can't talk about that case, obviously. Yeah. That unfortunately, I did write that I wanted to get newspaper clippings and send the family a letter wearing thick gloves. So, my fingerprints weren't on the letter. But
yeah.
It's not an option. I wrote in the book, it's not an option. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. But what I can do then is write this chapter to just, again, make sure it never happens again. Because to this day, no one knows. They don't know, I should say. And then so we're almost done. C-section. This is probably the last one. Chapter 13. So most baby cases end in a C-section. So, and there's a few different things with C-section. whether you walk into labor and delivery and they give you two options, or they offer you a C-section in the middle of labor for some reason. Now, they may offer you a C-section, like, we got to go now. Okay. So if you see the hyper doctor and they're like, no, we need you to do stat, and they're freaking out, most likely you're going to say yes. But if there's a doctor and they're like, well, you have this option, you have this option, you can kind of sense that the urgency is not there. But I give you things to think about in the book. So if they ever say, hey, you need to have a C-section, I just prepare you for that. So then you can make a factor decision, based upon, what's going on. And then the last chapter is the Pitocin with the 14 tips on how to have a safe Pitocin induction. And then, there's one more chapter, chapter 15, a perfect gift from God. And that's just a nice story on basically that powerful moment when you get to hold your baby for the first time. So while childbirth may be hard, or you just got through my book and you're just, just know that pretty soon you're going to be holding the baby, or I was going to say that perfect gift from God. So that's just more of a keep the end in mind as you, get ready, because pretty soon you are, that it's going to be right there. It's going to be within your reach. So just make sure you stay strong during childbirth.
And it goes by so fast. I mean, when you're growing up and time seems so slow, and then you get into this adulthood and you're like, how could I have ever thought it was going by so slow? It's going by so fast all the time. Yeah, we really have to take time to, number one, I hope that people that are going to have a baby will be excited to get this information and help make a better plan and have a safer childbirth. Absolutely. And those who don't know, like, I hope we can get the information to them. What's the average age people are having children in this decade right now? Do you know that?
No,
I don't either. That's interesting.
I would say, I feel like a lot of we were older. I feel like my generation, I'm 47.
Me too.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
And, but my niece, she's 23, 24. She has 2 kids.
Yeah.
And her friends have babies. Like, they all have babies.
So in 20s, I think so, maybe older, like I said, that older high school or college, that might be a perfect audience for this information and to getting the, because who doesn't want to be prepared for it? You don't go a whole pregnancy not thinking about the birth of your child.
Right.
Be responsible, get the book, be accountable, get a baby advocate. I absolutely love that. I love advocates for everything. And I'm down on baby advocate, down for that for sure. I love it. I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful advice to give to families, and, and ultimately what you're doing. And I'm sure that if, birthing teams could be listening to this right now, would really ultimately know you're saving their butts in the future for things that could go wrong. You're not only helping these families, but you're also helping these professionals to better not be in these situations as well. So across the board, just bravo, brilliant job on doing that.
So real quick, literally, right, exactly what you said. Before I published my book, I had 6 pregnant beta readers read it. They felt, they loved it. They felt very blessed that they were able to get it ahead of time. But I also had a labor and delivery nurse read it. And she calls me and she's like, Gina, do you know how much easier my job will be? She was like, thank you. And then she's like, and how do you know all this stuff? I'm like,
too much experience.
How I know this stuff. This is what I do every day. Yeah. But she was like, oh my goodness. She's like, my job's going to be so much easier because she doesn't have to, again,
then maybe introducing it to
Right.
some
They don't have to
nurses so that they
explain.
can give it to the people too, to the patients. So
Yeah. So that is, that's
excellent.
other things.
Yeah.
You
Here I'm
know,
heading up your marketing department. You're right. No, I'm just kidding.
oh, literally, I love it. So, it's
Oh, too
funny, and
funny.
you can help me with this one. You can help me with this one. So I'm finding that who really, really loves my book are the expecting grandparents. They
Oh,
are all over the book.
there you
They
go.
email me and they're like, I'm just, I am the baby advocate
Yep.
and I am prepared. And, I'm sharing this with my other grandma friends, and
I
the
love
grandmas are like who want the best
There
for
you
their
go.
kids and,
I
their
love that.
grandkids. The
Of
grandmas are loving it.
course.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I mean, they're definitely oversharing the information. So
I know,
that's
right?
exactly what you need is those grandmas getting in there. No, I think that's brilliant. I love it. I'm so glad that we connected and I was so excited to have this conversation and really discover more. And it was so much more than I had anticipated and I learned so much. So thank you so much
Oh,
for being here. Yeah.
you're welcome. And thank you for having me. I
I
had
love
such a
that.
great time and I loved learning about you and what you
Thank
do. And I
you.
just think you are absolutely amazing. So it
Well,
was just a huge privilege to
we're
be on your
gonna
show.
stay in touch, I hope, and let's,
Mhm.
we can weekly coffee chat about what's happening next.
Yeah, we'll talk about my
um,
marketing.
I love it. Right? Exactly.
Yeah, you can give me all my ideas on what to do next. That's about that is the one thing I'm missing.
Oh, it's tricky. And I'm still on my own self discovery paths of all those things too. So it's a constant learning curve, that's for sure. Where can we go to support you now and to get the book and to go to the website, all of the good stuff?
So GinaMundy.com. So just my name, GinaMundy.com.
Perfect.
That is that will have like a link to my book. My book right now is only available on Amazon, except locally, but I know most of your guests probably don't live in Michigan or in Clarkston, Michigan. Um, but Gina Mundy, that has my information. And then, like I had said in the podcast, it has the first chapter of my book there where you can download it. And then I'm going to put, after talking to you, because I just feel like it's so important, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put like the baby advocate stuff in there and then maybe even try to add to it. Just that way you have that way you don't have to, if your baby advocate's, in another house or down the road or whatever, you can send them to my website and they can
Perfect.
just get the stuff off there. So I'll throw that up on there. But yeah, that's just, and then my email. So it's contact Gina or whatever on the website, but it has my email, gm@ginamundy.com. So my initials at ginamundy.com. Email me if you have any questions. If you've read my book, I would love to hear from my readers. I mean, I spent thousands of hours on this book for you guys. So anybody that has enjoyed it or feedback or questions, just would absolutely love to hear from you guys. It would make my day. Even if it's not great, even if you're like, Gina, what is this? Yeah, I'm good. Just send it over. I just to hear from you guys would be great.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And social medias or anything? You have any pages going on?
Well, I don't know, marketing person. No, just
Okay,
kidding.
we'll get
Yeah, we
pages
need to work
coming
on
to you
that. No,
next.
it's funny. My Twitter. So I have a 9-year-old. I went to my Twitter account because it is my name. I was able to get my name, but I haven't posted. I posted the day he was born, and then that was it. So then now I've had some book stuff up. So Twitter is Gina Mundy. Anything else? Yes, I have not really. I have a TikTok account. I have not released a video yet. I'm working up to that. But Twitter. I think Twitter is just Gina Mundy.
Yeah.
But you'll see like 6 tweets. So that is my next. And I know that it's important to be on these platforms to help get the word out. So, and I do realize the importance of that. So that's why they're there. And that's kind of we just had a really fun summer. I don't know. In Michigan, we tend to go crazy. We were locked up all summer. I'm sorry, all winter.
Yeah.
And we're not winter people. Like we don't ski or anything like that. But so, we're going to be more inside maybe more than anybody else. But the everybody here just kind of they like to have a lot of fun in the summer.
Right.
So we had a lot of fun. So now I'm gonna get on social media. I think the fun
Yeah.
ends after Labor Day.
Yeah, isn't that the truth, huh?
Mhm.
Start to life, school and real life starts back up, folks. Sorry. It's time to put your
Right.
summer sandals away and get your work boots out.
Mhm.
That's right. Well, it's so much fun talking to you today.
Same
And
here, Tara.
I'm so glad we got to make this connection. So thank you for your time and thank you for your generous amount of work that you have put into this for everyone and for safer babies in the future. So bless your heart.
Aw, thank you. You know what? I really appreciate that. That means more than you know.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. And I'm excited to stay in touch for sure.
Oh, 100%. 100%.